what are your takes on whether or not Mike Leach should be in the Hall of Fame?
This is hard for me to say, but no, he shouldn't. Um, and let me start out by saying a few things. Mike Leach, when as a coach, I'm with you. If like I were an athletic director and Mike Leach would have been in my top 3 no matter what if I were ever hiring a new coach. I have great respect for the people he impacted, his coaching tree. Um, there's and I think the idea that he should, if you're not going to put him in because you have that 60% winning percentage requirement, that's just stupid. Okay, and because college football Hall of Fame requires coaches to win 60% of their games, that's a dumb criteria. But at the end of the day, in spite of all of that, more than anything, college football is about production, and I can't put a coach in the Hall of Fame who's never won a conference title and has 2 11-win seasons and just one top 10 finish over the course of 23 years. I could listen to it from just Texas Tech, but Washington State and Mississippi State, it's not like what Mike Leach did there was unprecedented. Washington State is not far removed from going to the Rose Bowl under Ryan Leaf. So it's not like what Mike Leach did at Washington State hadn't been done in recent history. It has. It's also at Mississippi State. I mean, let's be honest. He was only there 3 years, but wasn't much better than his predecessor Joe Moorhead, and Dan Mullen accomplished a lot more at Mississippi State. I know that's really unfair because he was there for just 3 years, but like, it's not like winning 9 games or 8 games at Mississippi State is unprecedented either. Dan Mullen got them to number 1 in the country with Dak Prescott back in 2014. Jackie Sherrill led them to the SEC West Championship in 1998. So it's so hard for me to say no, but I do put production above everything else, and even relative to the schools he was at, I can't say the production was there to put him in the Hall of Fame. My standards are high. If you have to think about it, they're not in my standards.
Yeah, Caleb's standards are definitely high. I completely disagree with you, Caleb. I put Mike Leach in solely because of what he did for the game of football. He changed it. The air raid. I mean, I can't emphasize how much he changed the game and how great of a mind he was. And as you know, Joe pointed out that hold on, sorry, let me look. Leach should be in because of his coaching tree alone. I agree with that. I also definitely agree with that. He's the way his players played for him and the bad rep that he got over something that is considerably not true with the whole ESPN and everything that happened at Texas Tech. I just think that he deserves, I think he changed the game for the better, and I think he deserves to be in, in the Hall of Fame. And I know we say that Mississippi State is still, even if when Dan Mullen was there, he had Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know of many Mississippi State quarterbacks that are as successful as Dak Prescott is, and maybe at least for Mississippi State, once in a lifetime type talent for Mississippi State. And Dan Mullen had that, and as we've seen, Dan Mullen went to Florida and did absolutely nothing. So I don't know if I would necessarily credit that to Dan Mullen or if I would credit that more to Dak Prescott.
Well, before Dak Prescott, though, Dan Mullen went 9-4 in Mississippi State in 2010, which is the best Mike Leach would have done at Mississippi State in 3 years. That was Mullen's second year. We also have to remember Jackie Sherrill with Wayne Matkin at quarterback went 8-5, but won the West in 98, and then went 10-2 in 99. So, if we're talking coaching tree, see, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, Amanda, because then we have to, if we're going to bring in Mike Leach, we're going to have to bring in Hal Mumme, who was the head coach where Mike Leach served as offensive coordinator at Valdosta State, Iowa Wesleyan, and Kentucky. They developed the air raid, and no one's going to put Hal Mumme in the College Football Hall of Fame. And so I he didn't have Mike Leach's level of success. I would give you that. But if we're, I think the baseline for the Hall of Fame has to start with level of success relative to your programs. And while Mike Leach had success relative to his programs, and I believed in Mike Leach's offense enough to that like I said, I would hire him. It's kind of like the debate about the college football playoff for me. I don't put in the 4 best teams that I think would beat anybody else below them. I put in the 4 teams that I think have the best body of work throughout the year. And I go there with Mike Leach. I just don't think his body of work. I do the same with players. There are some players that I would put that I wouldn't put in the Hall of Fame that I think are better than players who are in the Hall of Fame. I think Donovan McNabb was a better quarterback than Kurt Warner. I'm not putting Donovan McNabb in the Hall of Fame. Kurt Warner belongs in the Hall of Fame. And so I think the 2 MVPs count, and then the Super Bowl, obviously. So things like that, just baseline things, matter to a certain degree with production. And I just, there's not enough for me for Mike Leach.
I see. I disagree. I think he did so much for football, and the fact that he didn't even play it is something that I think he should be in the Hall of Fame for. He played rugby. He never even played football. I mean, he was a lawyer and decided, hey, this is cool. I like this game. Let me be an advocate for this game. So I think that he was just the way that he influenced the game of college football. I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame, and the personality that he was. He's an old school coach. I saw a quote from him saying that he would bring in a big gulp of ice water into the meetings, and they would turn up the heat in the room so that the players had to struggle to stay awake. And then if one of them fell asleep, he'd pour it on their heads. Like he said, and I did that numerous times. I think that he is the epitome of the old school kind of coaching, the old school kind of football. And I just his story. Thank you, Joe. His story is Hall of Fame worthy. Like everything that he was and everything that he is, what he meant to college football, I think that he deserves to be in that. Because I know you have a really high standards, and I have high standards, but I guess coming from, I don't know if it's just the female in me, but the story to me puts him in there over others. The differences that he has versus everybody else, the type of personality that he was. It's not all about, for me, statistics, and it's not all about what you can see on paper and what you can see as a coach. It's about how he impacted the game as a whole, and I think he changed it.
So if you want to talk about changing it and the impact in the coaching tree, I'm willing to give it somewhat of a listen. But like I said, that brings me back. If we put him in for that, then we have to put Hal Mumme in, because again, the coaching tree starts with Hal Mumme, not Mike Leach. Mumme's the one who developed the air raid. He's the one who was the head coach that Mike Leach worked under. And that's where I'm at. My stopping point is that none of us are putting Hal Mumme in the Hall of Fame. And if we're not going to put him in the Hall of Fame, we can't put Leach in for this coaching tree because it doesn't start with him. It would almost be like if Kirby Smart develops a coaching tree, acting like that tree doesn't start with Nick Saban, because it does. And so it's, anything that Kirby Smart does, any coach that is successful under him is an offshoot of the coaching tree Nick Saban started. And so that's where I am with Leach, with Mike Leach and Hal Mumme too.
See, it depends, I think. I think it depends if Kirby Smart tweaks it a bit, if Kirby Smart makes it a little different. or more successful than Saban did. But you can't make it more successful than Saban has, because Saban's the most successful coach in college football. So I don't think there's anybody that has just completely changed, the game, and Saban has. But I think they've taken bits and pieces from others and put them together, and that's how you change the game. I don't think you just come up with some, just huge schemes that would just make the game completely different. Because, I mean, let's face it, everybody's come up with the same thing. It's just how you execute it. And I think that Mike Leach executed it way better.
Well, I wouldn't say he executed it better than Mummy. I think he got different opportunities than Mummy. But I get your point with that. But honestly, on a side note, Kirby Smart's actually where he's tweaking it from Smoky Mountain Run. I just want to respond because he did just say level of success from Mummy to Leach is different. And I get you on that, Smoky Mountain Run. I get that the level of success was different. But if we're talking about level of success, body of work, then we go back to body of work and level of success. And the level of success on its own doesn't get Leach into the Hall of Fame. Now, just on an interesting side note, it's funny because we're talking about Kirby Smart versus Nick Saban, where Kirby Smart tweaked it from Nick Saban. Kirby Smart is running Georgia like Nick Saban used to run Alabama, like 10 years ago. And I think that's kind of the intriguing thing, is that he's running a very simplistic, conservative, pro-style offense, whereas Nick Saban's kind of embraced elements of the spread and been a little more tempo based. And like Kirby Smart is running out Georgia like the way Nick Saban ran Alabama in 2011 when Jim McElwain was his offensive coordinator. That's actually kind of funny. But yeah, look, this is not. I want people to understand this is not a slight on Leach at all. I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure if Philip Fulmer deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame. I've got really high standards for the Hall of Fame, and I'm like, changing the game can be a factor, but level of success still has to matter. And I guess Fulmer's in because of level of success, but you're right, he didn't change the game at all. Like Fulmer didn't change anything about college football. So
See, Fulmer was a politician, and Mike Leach, what you saw is what you got with Mike Leach, which I feel is so refreshing, and I feel like that should take precedent over a lot of the whole statistics and all of that stuff. He made college football much better for being in it. Did Philip Fulmer make college football much better for being in it?
No. Yes, I would agree with you on that. Just a quick throw out, Joe Fowler, you do have a point with Johnny Majors. I think there's an argument for Johnny Majors in the Hall of Fame as a coach. He isn't as a player. He got in 1987. But yes, he's not in as a coach. But I would say if Fulmer was going to be in the Hall of Fame, Majors should absolutely be in the Hall of Fame. They have the same number of national championships. Majors coached a Heisman winner at Pittsburgh. So I'll look that up, Amanda, if you in a second. I'll look it up. But I thought he was in as a coach too, but I could be wrong on that. But yeah, even Smoky Mountain Red said it's a thin line on Leach getting in. My thing is, if it's a thin line, then we're like, that's when once the line is blurred, I'm out. I'm like, no Hall of Fame. And there's a Hall of Very Good, and then there's a Hall of Fame.
Hall of Very Good.
Yes. I get this from, you're going to lose your mind on this, and your head's going to explode, Amanda, because I saw you on Twitter the other day, and I agreed with what you said, by the way. But I get this standard from Skip Bayless. And I know, but he actually, this was a point he one time made that I think is the best point he ever made on television, which is if the Hall of Fame is about transcendent in nature, historical in nature, to the degree that if you have to think about it, they shouldn't be in. So because I have to think about Leach, I mean, even after thinking about it, I'm still like, yeah, probably not. But because I have to think about it, that makes it a little bit easier.
See, I don't have to think about it. That's the thing, is it's different. I think it's different opinions and what makes college football. Mike Leach is what makes college football. I mean, his personality, the way that the antics, the stuff he said on the sideline, the rants about don't get married during football season, elope, stuff like that made college football so much better for him being in it. I mean, his personality, I think I'm sold solely on his personality, because I just don't think that I don't think there's college football without Mike Leach right now. Like, I just don't. I don't think that just my opinion, his personality just takes the cake, and he makes that environment of college football. He's what separates college from the pros. He is, again, not a politician, not a salesman, not any of what we've seen with coaches in the past, Butch Jones, Dennis Franchione. I mean, just different people that we've seen. Urban Meyer. Will Urban Meyer get in the Hall of Fame for college football coaching? Probably.
But you also have to give Urban Meyer some credit in this. I can't believe I'm saying that, because I hate Urban Meyer as a person. Like, I shouldn't say hate. I'm sorry. I despise him as a human. But when you talk to Urban Meyer, has Mike Leach plus the success to it, because Urban Meyer also changed the game from an X's and O's perspective. He literally got the whole college football world running the spread offense. Nobody was running that when he and Dan Mullen.
But do you like him as a person, and how he is, all of the scandals, all of that stuff? Like, do you really like him as a person? That's the thing.
No, I mean, I don't.
Would you want to put him in somewhere where people can go and admire him? No, you would not.
But the Hall of are you saying Urban Meyer shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame with 3 national championships? And
I'm saying, if Urban Meyer is in the Hall of Fame based on just what he did on the field, but he has his crappy character to go along with it, then Mike Leach should be in the Hall of Fame, just because let's counterbalance that with the personality, with him, you think of Mike Leach, you think of college football. I'm not saying Urban shouldn't be in it. Urban should be in it, but I don't like him. He's a politician. I do not like Urban Meyer under any stretch of the imagination. But if you're going to put Urban Meyer in there just for his, what he's done on the field, even if his off the field activities are despicable, I think you should put Mike Leach in there because of who he was off the field and the success he had on it.
Okay, you would have had me if you brought up another coach that has some despicable off the field activities without the level of success that Urban Meyer has, because Urban Meyer's success is so. I mean, outside of Nick Saban, no coach the last 25 years is more successful than Urban Meyer. Now, yes. Kirby Smart may surpass.
Terrible person, though. Terrible person.
But conduct grades aren't what gets you into the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's like,
that should be a factor, though. It's like the Heisman. That should be a factor. We should not just should outweigh it.
Yeah, no,
it should outweigh it.
If you want to do, because you know how I feel about it. Now, again, Urban Meyer, I would listen more than because Caleb Williams trash talk, that's where I disagreed. I would listen more with Urban Meyer, because Urban Meyer covered up for people harming human beings. Like, Urban Meyer legitimately covered up for horrific things.
Yeah, and we're still wanting to put him in the Hall of Fame just because of what he did on the field.
But because what you do on the field matters. Just being that has to be a standard too. Like, if you think character shouldn't, being a nice person shouldn't outweigh production. Now, if you think it should be a factor to a certain degree, fine, that's fair. But it can't make up for lack of production. I mean, if the backup quarterback is a nice guy on an NFL team, that doesn't mean he belongs in the Pro Bowl.
No, but that's not saying. I mean, you have to do something on the field. I get that, but I think Mike Leach has done something on the field. I think he's done things on the field. Has he been as successful as Urban Meyer? No. But did he also coach at Ohio State or Florida? No, he didn't. He coached at Mississippi State, Washington State, and Texas Tech.
Yeah, but Urban Meyer also, to be fair, coached at Utah and Bowling Green and had a level of success that at those smaller schools that Mike Leach didn't have at the schools he coached.
Understood. But what I'm saying is if you're going to honor somebody in the Hall of Fame just for what they did on the field, but yet they turn around and covered up the atrocious things that he covered up, knew about it, and we know Urban Meyer had cheated. Like, we know he's cheated in college football. Everybody knows that. I mean, my God, look at his 2008 Florida class.
Oh yeah, is that the one that Lane Kiffin accused him of cheating when he was at Tennessee? That got Lane Kiffin reprimanded, or was that?
Pretty sure. Yeah. So you know that if he's doing all of that to get the to get the wins and to get the success that he's gotten so far, or not so far, he's done now, God, hopefully, but if he's gone that far to get those, but we're still going to put him in the Hall of Fame, even though he's a shady character.
Well, here's the uncomfortable, unfortunate truth. Urban Meyer, what Urban is, I'm with you. He's despicable. He's very despicable as a human being.
But we're still going to honor him.
Well, hold on. Let me finish though. But there are what Urban Meyer did, and I will give you compared to Mike Leach. This is what sets Mike Leach apart character-wise. But what Urban Meyer did, I think you would agree, is par for the course among a lot of college football coaches, unfortunately. And a lot of college football coaches still didn't have the success Urban Meyer had. Trey Barkley says if a coach is cheated, they don't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Well, this is speculation that we think that Urban Meyer cheated. Trey, we have no actual proof. So and if we have proof the way we have proof on every coach that's won a national championship the last 25 years has probably cheated to a certain degree for some recruiting class. I don't think Urban Meyer's cheating went anywhere beyond what I'm not going to pretend that I don't think Phil Fulmer may have done a little bit of shady stuff to win the national title in '98. I'm not going to pretend I don't think that Jimbo Fisher didn't do some shady stuff. I'm not so sure Nick Saban didn't do some shady stuff at times. I think they've all. I don't think Urban Meyer's level of shadiness in recruiting goes beyond any other coach. Now, Urban Meyer's shadiness in covering up for character flaws does, but it's. I think that's still par for the course. It's not Joe Paterno level. It's not Joe Paterno level, which is the worst scandal in college football history to me. And that's a scandal so bad that I would actually listen if you said Joe Paterno shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, honestly. Or if you said he should be taken out of the Hall of Fame, because I think he's in. Because
he's in the Hall of Fame, yes. And
yeah. And so I would listen to that is one character scandal where I'd be like, you know what? If you want to kick him out, I might listen, because what Joe Paterno did was so egregious and so disgusting and so despicable. And every Penn State fan that defended him to this day should be ashamed of themselves for what they did defending that man.
Covering up for abuse, though, it's still getting down to it, and I understand the difference. But oh, great, here comes our.
Wow, we're talking about covering up for abuse, and then we hear the find your love here. Wow, perfect timing.
Yes, thank you, bots. Covering up for abuse is exactly what Urban Meyer did too, and I understand it's different. It's different types of abuse, and I get that. But Urban Meyer is proven that he knew what that guy was doing.
Exactly.
He knew it, and he covered it up.
One difference, though, I agree, and it was really bad. The big difference, though, is what Urban Meyer did not facilitate more abuse by Zach Wilson for 2 decades. And so, like Joe Paterno, as we know, was told about Sandusky in 1999. That is what we know is the earliest. I think it was earlier than that. You probably think it was earlier than that too, that he knew about what Sandusky was doing. But
sure,
the earliest we knew was in 1999. Sandusky mysteriously retires after being the coach in waiting, is allowed to have an office on campus for the next 13 years. Joe Paterno basically facilitated and covered up to allow Sandusky to continue to do what he was doing for 13 years. That's why I'm not comparing levels of abuse. I'm just saying Joe Paterno's actions actually facilitated more abuse by Sandusky. And so that's where I would listen to. But I still would actually keep Joe Paterno in the Hall of Fame, funny enough. It would just
oh my gosh, Caleb.
I said I would listen to taking him out, but I still would put him in, though.
Yes, but Caleb, I see.
OJ's in the Hall of Fame in the NFL.
Who? What?
OJ.
Well, yes, I know, and I would remove him I would have never let them in, and I guess that's where we go. Is character should matter. Character should matter. Changing the game of football, whether it's X's and O's on the field or it's off the field, it should matter. It should matter. Urban Meyer did great things on the field. Off the field, terrible human being. Covered up for abuse. Faked a heart attack.
Wow, you're
To
one of
get
those who
out.
think he faked it. I actually agree with you. I do think.
He faked it.
Also, he also ran from Florida because he knew that the program was falling apart, and he knew that like he wanted to dump the blame on Will Muschamp, who I don't think is a good coach, but Muschamp inherited a mess at Florida that Urban Meyer left.
Yes. And what did he do? He ran. His character is crap. It's crap. I'm sorry, it's crap. And I don't think people with crap character, because if you have crap character and people know you have crap character, just imagine what you're doing behind it, like behind the scenes that people don't know about.
Oh yeah.
You know what
So
I mean?
okay, you know where we disagree with. So I these are character flaws, by the way, that I do actually listen because I know with the Caleb Williams Heisman debate, you thought I was crazy with my character talk, but these are ones where I do actually listen because these are actions, not just words. And I think Caleb Williams is just words, and I think actions matter more than words all the time. And so
By adults, I mean I understand Caleb Williams. I don't even know how old he is, like 20, something like that, 21 maybe.
probably,
and he's he's still relatively. He's still kind of a kid. Yeah, he can grow out of this. Urban Meyer cannot grow out of this. He's a terrible human being, and he is going to be in the Hall of Fame. But someone who has influenced this whole game and for the better, someone who has been just a role model. Every kid for the most part. There's a couple that have their problems or had their problems with Mike Leach, but everybody else that you're hearing from is talking about what a big impact he had, and even from people he coached to journalists to just people he touched in regular life. You know what I mean? Everyone loves Mike Leach, and he changed the game for the better. So, Urban Meyer did not.
Well, he did change the game from an X's and O's standpoint. People might say for the better. He introduced a very entertaining offense. And look, he got lucky that Tim Tebow fell out of the sky into his lap to run that offense because like there's no better design to run that offense than Tim Tebow.
And Aaron Hernandez.